just got the first copy of my book.
Prior to entry,
And being hosted by Legal Immigration Services.
guys, how are you? It's Brett Miller here from Immigrate.
Fantastic service, fantastic. Always recommend me.
Guys, how are you?
Always recommend.
Hey guys, if you're moving to Canada, there's one thing that I know about each and every one of you. You're gonna have to figure out where you should live, all right? So I wanna dive into that a little bit, and I wanna share some things that I've seen over the years and give you some things to think about. Now, the number one, there's an assumption that if you're coming to Canada, you need to live in Toronto, Montreal, or Vancouver. We'll talk about the major cities today, but I wanna share that there's a lot more to Canada than those three major cities, and I want to stress the importance of planning and research. I want to give you some strategies to think about. I think what you should do is you should narrow it down to 3 provinces. Then you should narrow it down to 3 cities in each province, and then really kind of figure out and learn about those different places and go from there. I also think that this is a really personal decision based on a number of different factors, and frankly, you're coming a long distance, so you might want to figure out and put some time into what your future home's going to look like. You can live anywhere, and you've come this far, so why don't you get something that you actually want for your second home? Now, major cities in Canada. Toronto is obviously the largest metropolitan area in Canada, and in 2016 it had 6.2 million people. Okay, but there's a high cost of living downtown Toronto, but there's many surrounding cities in the GTA, okay, which we call the Greater Toronto Area. We've got Mississauga, Vaughan, Markham, etc., etc. Okay, you know, Aurora, King City, Bolton, it goes on and on and on. And then out to the east, you've got Pickering, and then you've got Oakville, and it wraps around to the Niagara Peninsula and all of that. There's a ton of different options if you want to live in that area. Okay, next. If you're looking to go a little bit further east, you could look at, say, Montreal, because that's the second biggest city in Canada, right? Largest French-speaking city in Canada. Okay, the population of this city in 2016 was 4.2 million. Montreal could be an excellent option for you to settle if you're familiar with French and English. Now, a lot of times, I just want to say, just as a side note, a lot of times people are under this assumption that, yeah, Montreal is pretty much, you know, in terms of Quebec, there's an English component to it. And yes, that is somewhat true, but I always suggest to people that if they want to move to Quebec, you know, it really makes it a lot easier if you have French. And as an Anglophone there, yes, you can survive in Montreal speaking English, but the further east you go and the different places that you go, you know, you're gonna have to have some French. And I just think it's a great idea for you to have that anyways, all right? Let's go a little bit further west, and we're gonna talk about the 3rd largest city. Well, we're gonna go a lot west, which is Vancouver in British Columbia. Now, this is the 3rd largest metropolitan area in Canada, and currently the population is about 2.5 million people. It is one of the most expensive cities in Canada. Now, again, these are jockeying for different positions, and if you've ever heard me speak, you've heard me make the joke. I always ask people, what does BC stand for? Everyone's like, oh, it's British Columbia. I'm like, no, it stands for bring cash, right? Because BC is pretty expensive, you know. I travel out there a number of different times for different things, you know, for conferences, vacation, whatever. And I'm always like coming directly from Toronto and flying out there. I'm like, oh man, expensive, right? But again, if you're not concerned about that as much, and you might have something or some other reason to go there, not a big deal, but I just wanted to flag that for you. All right, choosing a location based on lifestyle, this is important, and I think this is the number one thing that you need to consider, all right? You need to think about what you like to do and what you want out of life and what you also need to do with your work, and we'll talk about that. It's important to choose a location based on your lifestyle. If you like living downtown in busy areas and metropolitan areas, like we mentioned earlier, maybe those cities are for you. But if you're interested in a small, quiet town, or you're looking for something that's a little bit smaller or rural, maybe that's not gonna work out so well. But also, I want to point out to you this, is that even if you're in an urban center like that, like downtown Toronto, you can drive for like 2-3 hours and you can be in the middle of nowhere, all right? Depending on which direction you're gonna go. So you can have a nice little balance, but you gotta do your research and figure that stuff out. Find out what you're looking for in a home. Do you need to be close to major cities? Do you need to be close to international airports because you travel? Do you want to be close to schools because you want to work at a school? Do you want your kids to go to a certain school? Whatever. Hospitals, parks. Do you want land? Do you want something like that has a lot of space? Do you want a quiet place to retire? Or do you want a young nightlife area? These are all things that you need to think about, and it's different for everybody. But seriously, do your location planning and then think about it from there. So if you're coming as a student, you might be wondering if you should focus on finding a school and then going to that location. I think that's a pretty good idea, but you got to be pretty strategic about the school that you're going to and what you're going to study. Some people are set on a location, will find a school in that location, whereas others are looking more for the school and then will go that way around the issue, okay? But either way, think about what your intention is and go from there. Major universities and locations. So let's talk about that. You've got University of Toronto, which is obviously in Toronto. You've got McGill in Montreal, and you got UBC in Vancouver. You got McMaster in Hamilton. You got Queen's University in Kingston, which is close to Toronto. So these are some things that you might want to consider. Let's talk about some colleges and different things there. So you got Humber College in Toronto. You got Centennial College in Toronto, George Brown, Toronto, Red River College in Winnipeg, Douglas College in New Westminster in BC. Guys, there's so many different colleges and universities in Canada, and I've just named off just a few that have just come to mind, but go take a look. All you got to do is type in Canadian universities or Canadian colleges, or type in a province and you'll find it. Now, let's get into work and location. Some people are set on a location and will find a job in that location. Others have to find a job or job offer and go wherever that may be. Okay, this is an important thing that you need to consider when you're looking for a place to live, because if you're basing that on your job history or in-demand jobs, you got to think about that. So for instance, major industries in different provinces. Ontario, there's a lot of service industries, tech, manufacturing, things like that. BC, you got a lot of high tech, you got some film, television, service stuff, etc., etc. Nova Scotia, you've got fishing, tourism, service type industry. But and again, you've got the oil industry or potash out west or things like this. You have to think about where you want to go if you're going to work in one of these careers, right? No matter what you do, you got to be strategic about your place to live, and maybe you should rent first prior to settling into a place. Because I can tell you this, as somebody who lives in Toronto, if you have to drive, say, from Mississauga to Pickering, and that's basically east to west, and you have to take the 401 every day and you have to commute that highway, let me tell you, you better get comfortable in your car and have a nice car, because you're going to be spending half of your life in it. That highway is so busy that Discovery Channel even has a show on that about all the accidents and the tow trucks and all the different things. Yes, there's actually a show on a highway, but it's the busiest stretch of highway in North America. And I can tell you, if you live here and you work there, you've just welcomed yourself into a really horrible, horrible existence. Unless maybe you like that stuff, but anyways, most people don't. Listen, you're coming a long way, so you have to make sure that you invest the time to get into the right location, and I promise you, it will pay off in dividends. But I'm going to tell you right now, I have a lot of people that I've seen over the years. They don't spend a lot of time on it, and I like to ask people as well. If I asked you right now, how many cities could you name in Canada? I know I'm going to get Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal usually, right? If I said name me 5 cities, then I get probably a Calgary, Edmonton, a Winnipeg, something like that. But if I said name 10 or 15 cities, most people would struggle, okay? You should be able to do that. There's so many great places to live here, and you actually have to think about what your lifestyle is going to be like and all of that. I'm going to leave it at that because, again, I think I've really kind of covered a number of different things in this. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out. And I would really love to hear, some of the different areas that you've looked at or you're interested to live in. But again, do your research, guys. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out. Put some comments down below. If you want to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. And I know we've got some great videos that are coming out and that constantly come out. And I hope that I hope that they work for you. All right. Hope you're well. Look forward to talking to you soon. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you in a bit. See you in the next video.